what makes customers feel heard and valued and respected? What sort of communication do they really want? And bots ain't it at all.
Yeah. Do you think, okay, let me put you on the spot then. Do you think that bots and automation for customer service is a net positive?
Right now, no.
Hello, everybody. On the show with me today, I've got consumer journalist Wendy Knowler. You might know Wendy from shows such as Consumer Watch on East Coast Radio, and Wendy is arguably, if not definitively, the most well-known and the most experienced consumer journalist in the land. In this episode, I quiz Wendy on the impact of automation and how that has affected customer services. And if you're like me, having to deal with those automated email responses when you've got a problem and you really just want to get in front of a person, you want to speak to somebody who's going to make you feel heard. Wendy and I delve deep into that, as well as other issues that, as the South African consumer, you should be wary of, and how to do your homework to make sure that you don't get caught out. There's a lot to learn as a South African consumer, especially in 2024, and Wendy unpacks all of that with me, and I think it will be of huge value to you as it was to me. As always, you know the drill. Like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. Expect Performance podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you, Clint, and good to be with you. Yeah, I'm all good, always good.
Fair, Wendy, to call you the custodian of the South African consumer. You know, you've developed quite a reputation and a justifiable one at that over the last few years as a business a consumer journalist. So
yeah, but
how do you feel about that?
That's a bit of a reach. I would say that I've been doing this for 25 years. I can't believe it's that long. I always know how long it is because I was asked by the Mercury to start the consumer column when my daughter was a couple of months old. I was actually on maternity leave, and however old she is how long I've been a consumer journalist. I think there aren't enough of us, and I can understand why. Two reasons. I think the community newspapers should be doing it, but they are too reliant and beholden to their advertisers. So all it takes is for, they write a story about a local service provider ripping off one of their readers, and then, the service provider withdraws the advertising and gets all their mates to do the same. It's just they just won't do it, which is unfortunate. And because it's not, it's a lot of hard work and, agony aunt stuff, just hearing people's awful stories, or in my case, reading them day in and day out, it can get a bit much. But I think I've got to the point where it's my life, it's who I am, and for me, it's so rewarding. I just can't think of a better job in the universe for me. And I certainly in journalism, I'm a dyed-in-the-wool journalist. I can't think of any other form of journalism that would do it for me. So, because I've done all sorts of other forms of journalism, but this particular kind does have a certain kind of level of activism. I don't like being called an activist because journalists, by the nature of our profession, we have to be neutral and investigate both sides and try to reply and all of that and balance everything. But there is an intimacy and a connection with readers and listeners at a level that I think would be hard to replicate in other forms of journalism, certainly others that I've been involved in the past. So it is a very unusual job, and a lot of people don't actually even understand what journalism is. They're not buying newspapers, and they don't understand. People will ask me what on social media, what will I have to pay you on my emails? It's getting more and more common. What do you, before we carry on, if I say, okay, I'll send me these details, I'll take up your case, they go, but hold on, I have to ask, what are your fees? And then I have to explain, I'm a journalist, so it would be improper and unethical for me to charge you a fee for my work. And I find that quite sad that people don't really, they just hear this name, Wendy Knowler, she'll help you, here's your email address. A lot of them aren't actually getting what my role is, but so be it.
Wendy, that's a crucial thing that you've touched on there. Very interesting, in fact. How do you stay positive and optimistic just on the day to day when all you're hearing is people's consumer problems, people being ripped off and
It's a good question. Some days I don't manage it, but mostly I do. I'm by nature an optimist, glass half full kind of person. And look, the biggest stress, I'll be honest with you, Clinton, is not the weight of people's situations, which are dire. My biggest problem is that there's only one of me. I'm a freelance journalist. I have a lot of platforms. And so I get a lot of pleas for help every day. They pour in, and I just don't have the capacity to even read all the emails, much less take up all their cases. I've got 7 deadlines to meet. That's my priority because that's what that's where my income comes from, what I deliver, and not going through people's emails and helping here and
yes,
there.
of course.
So I have this weight of expectation on me. That's the biggest burden. That's the biggest downside of this job. That for every one person that thinks I'm amazing because I helped them, I took up their case, I aired the issue, there's probably 10 or 20 people who think I'm completely useless because I just didn't even return their email. And I always say, I'm sorry, I can't be all things to all people. I can't, I'm sorry I didn't see your email. Sorry I couldn't help. People will phone into the radio station that gets put on air and they say, I emailed you 3 weeks ago and I never heard from you. And it's embarrassing and I hate it. But there's nothing I can do about it. I can't afford an assistant, and just the thought of training an assistant up to the point where they could answer the emails in the way that I would want them to be answered is, that just seems like another burden. So I do the best I can. I try to remember the starfish principle, the story of the little girl who was walking on the beach after a storm, and it was just littered with starfish, dead and dying starfish, and she was throwing them back, as many as she could. And this old man said to her, little girl, you're wasting your time. What possible difference can you make? And she said, well, I'm making a difference to this one and this one and this one. And that's what I try to bear in mind when I feel overwhelmed, that I'm not, helping people that deserve to be helped. There just aren't enough ways. Too many people being done down from a range of just being ignored to being completely ripped off. So many scammers. And with the out and out scammers, there's not much I can do anyway. It's the companies that have a reputation that they want to uphold that I have the most sway and the most results. But it's a long-winded answer to your question, Clinton. The answer of how I stay positive is the ones that do help. It makes me feel great. It's my purpose. It's what makes me feel fulfilled. Sounds twee, but it is. I mean, the person who helps gets the biggest win. That's certainly how I feel. Just to be able to, after 25 years of doing this, send one email to a company, to the media department who knows me, who respects my role, to fix a problem. I mean, it shouldn't be. They should be able to fix their own problem, people who write to me. But someone could have battled with something for weeks or months, and I just help them. I get the money they would due or whatever, and it makes such a difference to them with very little work on my side. So it's those wins that do it for me, that make me feel that that I want to keep doing this for as long as I can.
So Wendy, having been in journalism for as many years as you have now, you mentioned that earlier. What are your thoughts on this? What makes a good journalist, especially in the context of 2024? Because I feel that journalism has changed so much and everything's changing so quickly.
Wow, that's a big question. I think, look, I graduated in the 80s. We didn't have social media. We didn't have internet. We had nothing. I just can't believe I would go out and dictate a story and from a remote location via a ticky box to the dictate typer sitting in the newsroom. I mean, it just seems like occasionally when I share stuff like that on social media, people are like, you are kidding me. The telephone was it. So I think part of the answer is that the same attributes that you always needed to be a good journalist still exist, because no matter what tools you're using, it's about you, right? So I think an inquiring mind, the ability to ask hard questions. I think you have to be quite have a high level of confront as a person. I think the inquiring mind is the main one. When I speak to some of my colleagues, I, as a little girl, always wanted to know the stuff that was happening behind the story. I always wanted to know wanted to be privy to stuff that ordinary people weren't, like behind the scenes stuff. That kind of thing was very exciting to me. Although, I mean, took me a long time to figure out that journalism was probably the right career for me. I won't go there right now. So all those things, inquiring mind, asking questions, knowing what questions to ask. And also a lot of the work we do is via email now, and and to be able to read the answer and think, do you have it answered this? And actually, it's quite a forensic, for me, it's quite a forensic job, which I love. But nowadays, I mean, I'll say it, I'm about to turn 60. So we didn't grow up. I mean, when I studied journalism, we didn't have computers. My first job was on a kind of a word processor thing. So we're not natural adapters to technology. But if you're still in the game, I mean, whatever platform you're on, I mean, you need to embrace multimedia. So you need to be tweeting, and you need to be, doing voices, and you need to be on, a variety of. I mean, I've stopped short of. Yeah, podcasts. Thank you, Clinton. You do podcasts, or the media company that you do work for, podcast your stuff. You need to be open to new ways of reaching people, and you need to be open to new audiences. And I mean, for example, people saying, well, not understanding that I'm a journalist, what is that about? You need to sort of concentrate on what your prime job is to get to inform and educate and warn and entertain, whatever form of journalism you're in. It's about connecting with people and doing it in new ways, and doing it in ways that your audience wants it to be. Even if that's not a natural fit for you. That's been a big challenge for me. I have a way to go. But I love radio, for example, because it's so retro. I mean, I grew up, I had a little plastic avocado green radio I got it when I was 7 or 8. And that was my friend. That was where my love of radio began. And I mean, I've still considered myself mainly a print journalist, because that's, for so many years of my career, that's how I started, and that's where my history is. But radio I love because it's retro, and yet it's so now. We always, whatever we're doing and however we're doing it, it's still something you can learn from and be, hear the news, be entertained. Whatever you're getting from radio, you can do it while doing other things. You just need your ears. You don't need your hands. You don't need to be in one place. You could be in your car. You could be wherever. And then the radio stations have been so clever, and then backing it up with multimedia. So they're podcasting the content, and they driving you to the website to look at the images that because it's the theater of the mind, right? Which is great, but we want to be able to see this stuff too. So they're providing that all in a multimedia way, and I find that really a really exciting medium for that reason.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier how things have changed in journalism, and I can't help but feel that the same is in customer service. So picture the two major consumer issues or customer service issues that I've had in the last 3 years. And I don't have many, but these were two big ones. They were both linked to me not being able to have a conversation with another person. It was automated emails.
Sure.
It was this automation customer services division. And I'll give you an example. So these stories must have been a dime a dozen, but over COVID, I bought some tickets for Air Mauritius, and I used it through an online booking platform, so not directly through the airline. And then, long story short, Omicron hit, and I had to forfeit one ticket, the ticket flying from Johannesburg. No, the ticket flying from Mauritius back, the return flight, I had to forfeit. But the flight from Johannesburg going to Mauritius, I then got given credit from the booking platform itself. And then the stories began. Then it was this back and forth between myself and this booking platform They were saying I need to contact Air Mauritius directly. I would contact Air Mauritius. Air Mauritius said they don't have any recollection, or they don't have anything showing up. And it was this constant toing and froing. And eventually I got fed up. And this was 18 months later. I eventually got the cell number of the national sales exec for the airline in
Good
South
for
Africa.
you.
Within 2 days, it was sorted. And
That's a bit like my job, except you did it for yourself.
but
Yeah.
I mean, I get the bit between my teeth, and I also have that sort of sense of justice, and then I'll sort of go to any ends necessary.
Good for
And
you.
it was just
That's
one
I
thing
shouldn't mention.
after the next.
Yeah, I should have mentioned the overdeveloped sense of justice. I've certainly got that. So that's as an attribute for a good journalist. Yeah, so you
An
have that.
overdeveloped,
Well,
interesting way.
overdeveloped in a good way, and that
Yes.
you come across an injustice, either yours or somebody else's, and it doesn't sit well with you. You don't sort of think, "Oh, that's awful," and move on to the next thing. It actually, weighs heavily on you, and then you're willing to do whatever it takes to get justice. I mean, it's not okay. It's not fair. I feel sometimes go into a sort of quite childlike. Even now, I'll read an email and I'll just get absolutely furious. I have to temper that by saying it's an allegation so when I phrase my emails, I'm not that outraged child. I'm very temperate, and I'll say this is according on their version, this whatever. If there's an absolute fact and it's outrageous, something that happened to the consumer, I'll point out that whatever. Which an attorney acting for a car dealership told me recently I had an offensive tone. I try very hard not to have an offensive tone, but yeah, to get to your point about that personal experience that you had, involving you just not you were nobody was taking ownership, so the airline was passing off to the booking platform and vice versa, and that's one of the main base reasons behind the emails that I get from people who've had a bad experience with the company, is that nobody's taken ownership. So companies work in silos and they don't communicate enough, and you just get there's no crusader for the customer or team of that sits in the customer's shoes or stands in the customer's shoes and says, okay, let's look at how this is landing for the customer and what are we going to do that are mandated to fix it. So my job is essentially, I have access to the higher ups who make decisions via the media departments of the various companies. And when I take it up, if there is merit, and almost all the time there is, I mean, there's occasional time where the complainant hasn't told me the full story, but mostly there's merit, and then they fix it because they can. But so I'm talking to these people, and the actual customers are trapped down here in call centers going nowhere fast. And all I do after their long struggles is take it here and it gets fixed. I mean, that's really what my job is in a nutshell. And it's horrific. And of course then you add chatbots. And yes, they're effective in certain things to impart basic information. But if someone has got a service delivery problem, you need soft skills. And chatbots don't have soft skills. You need people with empathy, communication skills, with the ability to know what to do, how to fix it. And you're just never going to be able to get that with a bot. So I think a lot of companies sort of throw a lot of money at tech to provide CRM, my worst, customer relationship management, or whatever other acronyms they want to throw at it, treating customers fairly, TCF, whatever, with losing the plot in terms of what makes customers feel heard and valued and respected. What sort of communication do they really want? And bots ain't it at all.
Yeah. Do you think, okay, let me put you on the spot then. Do you think that bots and automation for customer service is a net positive?
Right now, no. the technology could be used effectively, because especially in companies that are dealing with massive volumes. But in terms of being able to give customers what they need in any given time, right now, I think it's too restrictive. I think it should be one of the tools that's used, but it needs to be used very deliberately and carefully, because bots have the potential to really sabotage the corporate customer relationship, in my view.
Yeah. It's so funny that you said the customer being heard, because when I was making my notes in preparation for this, that was one of the points that I wanted to allude on, is the value of being heard. And I find,
Yes,
as a customer and a consumer, that's almost 90% of the battle is just want to be
completely.
heard.
Yes.
Everybody makes mistakes, even if there has to be a compromise, whatever the case might be, whatever the end result, just want to be heard. And through
And
automation and
communicated
through
with.
bots, and through
Yeah.
bots and through automation,
No.
you're
Reduced
just,
to a number,
yeah.
and you've got a specific thing you want to say, and you just can't get there through the press this and press that. But even beyond that, even if you get into the realm of when you are dealing with humans, at different touch points, whether it's face to face or digital or whatever, or emails, there's the biggest killer of customer connection is the not my jobism, or not my faultism, actually, probably more importantly. So somebody in an organization will have let you down, and then when you try and take it up, you get somebody else who, because they didn't personally do you wrong, don't feel the need to say sorry. They don't get you phoning in, even down to a simple thing. You phone a company, you get cut, you're asked to be put through somewhere, and they cut you off. And then you phone back and you say, but I got cut off. Airtime costs a lot of money. And they don't say sorry, because in their mind, I didn't cut you off. That was 3 people down I didn't do it. But they don't get that they're representing the entire brand in that moment for that customer, whether they like it or not. So they either get to enhance the brand and make that person feel good. Oh, I'm so sorry. That's so annoying. Let me try again. It's all it takes. Do you know that I've spent years and years testing this, because sometimes I don't have an established contact with a company, or they've left, and I need to now go through the main switchboard to find who's the new head of marketing, who's the new corporate comms, whatever. And I've been cut off more often than not. And I've never once, not once, phoned back and had someone, and I said, sorry, you cut me off. I've never once had someone say, oh, I'm sorry. Wouldn't you just forgive them in a moment if they said, oh, I'm sorry, even if it isn't their, even if it wasn't them? They don't understand. They're not speaking for themselves. When you're 7 years old and your father cucks you out, can I say that?
Right.
When your father cucks you out for, leaving the milk on the counter, but it actually wasn't you, it was your sister, then you can be outrageous. That wasn't me. I'm not taking it for her. And then, but when you are a grown-up and you're in a job that's customer-facing, that kind of reaction has no place. You have to take it for the team. And I promise you, Clinton, it sounds like a stupid example, but that not saying sorry. The lawyers get involved and say never say sorry. I mean, it's ridiculous. They think they're going to avoid litigation. They just create mulled up customers because they're not hearing a simple human sorry, which will just diffuse the situation altogether and make it go away. So that switchboard thing and being cut off is a very sort of tiny, silly example. Although it's important, because now when you do get through to the person, you get irritated. It's a very relatable one. So another example, when I do training, I always tell this example. It's a personal one. My daughter's card, she was a student at the time, was linked to my account. And so when it was stolen from her, which was out at the weekend, she phoned me and said, you have to stop the card. Well, please, will you stop the card? So I made the call on, it was a Saturday or Sunday, Sunday probably, and got through the call center woman. I said, I need you to stop my daughter's, put a stop on her card. And then because I know what happens, I said, please listen to me. Do not stop my card. Do not stop the whole account. It's just my daughter's card. No, okay, fine. And I said it about 4 times pedantically for the recording. Monday, I have to fly to Joburg for business. I was coming down with something and I needed to go immediately to the airport pharmacy, get a few things, put in my card, denied. It actually says, because it was flagged as a stolen card, or my daughter's was, it actually says confiscate card on the little card reader thing, the point of sale
Oh,
machine.
when you go to make
Like
the
as if
payment.
I'm the crook. Yeah.
Mm,
And anyway, I was
how
furious.
embarrassing.
I didn't take. No, I know exactly. So I now I've got to get the car train. I'm going for whatever business. Don't have time to deal with it. And then I remembered that there was a branch of that my bank in the airport. So I got to the airport purposely a little bit earlier before to catch my flight, and I go in, and this consultant sitting at a desk. Sit down, and I tell her the story. I said not to cancel, I canceled anyway. Now, what do you think her immediate response should have been? But she's sitting there thinking, there's somebody who works in online, has something to do with me. I didn't do it. So I'm not going to say sorry. Right? And then she sort of says, well, we'll see if we can waive the fee, like a big favor of the card replacement. These things are wonderful because they give me fantastic case studies to make my point, right? People learn through stories. But it's a classic. I didn't do it. I need to say sorry, but you're not an individual. They don't care that you're Clinton of whatever. You are that brand in that moment, the entire brand. And if employers just got help in making their employees understand that and training them sufficiently so that they didn't create unnecessary. I mean, it doesn't cost anything to say sorry. It doesn't cost 500,000 Rand investment in technology for customer relationship management to tell your people to say sorry in times like that. Because then it would be so much easier for them as well, because now I would have been like, I know that woman didn't personally do it, but if she'd said, "Oh, on behalf of the bank, that is just not okay. I'm so sorry, and I'm going to report this. But let me get you that card as soon as possible." I would have been so happy, so happy.
Yeah.
The fact that it was blocked would have been overtaken by the fact that this woman was being so amazing, and so getting what had happened to me, that it wasn't okay, and saying sorry, hearing me, right, hearing me.
Yeah.
And so that kind of training is just largely missing. If it happens, it's usually because that individual is that kind of person and gets it. Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
I'm the type of person that can hold a grudge, like me. I was part of it. I will do something on principle. If I will, sometimes I'll actually cut my nose off to spite my face. It makes it more difficult for me, but I'll do something on principle. And I went into a clothing store once. I bought my wife Lisa a pair of pants, and she wasn't there. I thought it looked nice. I was browsing, so I picked it up for her, went back. It's the incorrect size. Kept the receipt, everything, because I knew it was a 50-50 call. Take it back.
Yeah.
Within the allotted time, I can't remember if it was 14 days or 21 days, whatever it was, with the receipt. Here we go, guys. I need to exchange this for a small. Okay, fantastic. We don't have a small in stock at the moment, so please come back in about a week's time when we do have stock. So I said, wonderful. Will you phone me when you get stock? Yes, we will. Didn't get a phone call, so I phoned them. I said, yes, we've got a small in stock. Brilliant. Let me come back. I got there with the receipt. That was of that 21 or 14-day window, return window, to which they said, sorry, we can't, so that we can't exchange the product anymore. And it drove me absolutely up the wall. I said, but why didn't you tell me this? No, what should have happened is you should have received a voucher for credit that you could have then used at your discretion, and you should have given the garment back to us. I said, but how am I supposed to know that? It's your responsibility to inform me, the customer, that this is the story. And again, I had a brick wall when it came to taking it further, because there was apparently nobody above management level that existed in South Africa, because they're based abroad. And all I got was a customer services email to send a complaint to, and an automated response. And to this day, I haven't stepped back in that store. And to this day, I've still got the pair of pants that don't fit in my wife's cupboard.
Tell me, was it Zara?
Yes, it was.
I know. So, because I know it's Zara, a lot of stores would do that, but Zara is the most inflexible. So the truth, and nothing can touch them illegally, because what most people don't realize, because so many companies, I've just spent an hour, I'm doing some training with Woolworths, and I just spent an hour online with them, their team, as prep for what I'm going to be saying. It's for World Consumer Rights Day. And I said, you guys are the problem. You give out these lenient returns policies, and everybody, you don't tell them that it's not a legal requirement and that it's voluntary on your part, and then you make everybody entitled, that they think that this is their right. I said, give them a nice customer service, but tell them it's a luck, basically. So in your case with Zara, when you buy in a store, if you can't take it back for a refund or an exchange or anything at all legally, unless they're defective. If it's a change of heart, the law doesn't cover that. And that doesn't cover it anywhere in the world. But with so a lot of companies will, as a customer service, but people don't realize it's a service. They think it's their right. They will take back things within a certain time frame. It's usually 30 days. Woolies is 60. But Zara just never, ever will. And I can never take up those cases. All I say is, please, if it's a change of heart, look at the terms and stick by them, because it doesn't matter what the circumstances. I've had people take things back a day late, or no receipt, you're in the bush, they won't even think about it. And a lot of people have that reaction. I'm never going to set foot in that store again, because they just don't give their managers any leeway to make any discretionary decisions at all. I even had a case of a family that was flying from Durban to Cape Town for a family wedding, and they needed dresses for their two little girls urgently. They found, and it was like the last night. They were both professionals, working full day. So they found one for the little girl, and the older sister. They battled, and they eventually found a dress. And as they went to pay for it, the person at the cash desk said there was a tiny little mark of some kind on a sort of creamy white dress. And he said, we can't sell this to you. So it was the only one in that size. And he said, it's fine, I'm in retail. Both the parents were in retail. I'll sign a form that says we will have no comebacks on this dress, because we've bought it with a mark on it. We can easily get it off. We need this dress. We need it for this wedding we're going to tomorrow. No. I'm thinking, is that really customer service? And what does it cost them? They had no risk. They would have the sale. They had an undertaking signed by the customer that they weren't going to bring it back and make a demand on anything. There was no possible lose for the store. It was only wins all round. And yet they had this policy, and they were just not empowered. It was probably their jobs were on the line. If that manager had said, okay, in this case, sign this little thing, and off you go and enjoy the wedding. And it's another, it's and it's an unfortunate way to run a company, because I always say, let generosity be one of your guiding principles. So always fall on the side of generosity if you have a decision to make with a customer. Not to the point that it's going to make your business unprofitable, obviously, but generosity has its own currency. Generosity is a wonderful force for good, and good relations between customers and corporates, and it's quite underused. And if you have a business model that allows no flexibility, no wiggle room, no discretion on the part of managers of your stores, the bad will that's generated is immense, potentially immense.
Yeah. Well, I can attest to that. Wendy,
exactly.
Where's the South African consumer at the moment? 2024, things are tough globally, right? But in a third world country, in a developing country like us, we're feeling the pinch. South Africans are feeling the pinch.
In a very, very tough place. People are hurting. People are desperate. Do you know what I'm seeing for the first time in a rash? The last month, beginning of 2024, and I might have seen it here and there, but I haven't seen it in this sort of volume. I've had 4 emails from people who were grieved by something that happened 3 years ago, 2021-ish, where they now come to me to get them their money back or get them some kind of compensation because they're desperate for money and they're trying to think of a way. One woman was delayed by an airline. She'd got to the airport and she said she got no notifications of the flight being delayed. And she got there and she sat there for 4 hours and she felt so vulnerable, an older woman. And now she wants compensation for something that happened then. And when I took it up with the company, she'd booked through a travel agent like you, and the travel agent hadn't noted her cell phone number on the booking information. And so there was no way the airline could send her that SMS saying, so sorry, for operational reasons, our flight is delayed for how many hours. There was a recent one. I actually saved it under a folder for when I give my talks around this sort of desperation. I can't remember the exact case, except that it was also something that happened to her in 2021. Another one was a small business owner, sort of handyman kind of guy who did some work for a company, also a small company, and there was a business BEC, business email compromise. So hackers got into one or both of their email systems, and when he invoiced 18,000 rand to this company, the hacker fraudster intercepted the email. This is a thing, by the way, everybody. Inserted his bank account details on the invoice, and the company paid 18,000 rand to the fraudster. And that's so difficult to sort out because they were like, well, his email was hacked. And he's going, well, he says his was yours. But either way, you didn't actually pay him. And, they're just not interested in paying him back. But that was also November 2021. So that people are kind of looking for ways to just anyhow get some money. So there's always a spike in people who find so-called foreign objects, nasties in their food, and then they want like huge compensation for the trauma of it. It's understandable. It has ethical issues, but we see it at this time. And when you have a petrol increase or a fuel increase, the mood in my inbox also changes. I can sort of monitor the language people use. It's like everything in this country. There's 2 stories. You get the haves who are still spending on luxury goods and living it up, and then you get the different degrees of have-nottedness. It's about, well, I say I was a consumer journalist in 2008 when that horrible financial crash happened. People lost a lot. I remember writing columns on, how to reduce your grocery bill, what sort of stuff to buy, how to eat, what to cook. And then it was, COVID was another big one. And my inbox is still full of emails from people whose lives have been totally changed by loss of income, or loss of either their businesses or their jobs, and they haven't managed to get back to where they were pre-19. The businesses themselves, spoken to a few corporates off the record, they aren't back to trading where they were, at the beginning of 2019. It's a lot. It's a lot on both sides of the service provider consumer divide. I wish for magic wand abilities every day because suffering is horrible, and especially people who look to me to make things better for them somehow, and when I can't, it feels really awful. And it's just a very, very humbling job in that respect, because people write to me with their really, really personal and financial details, a window into the heart of their desperation. And I still, after all these years, struggle sometimes to find the right tone and the right words to respond, especially when I'm not able to help them at all.
Yeah.
That's not easy. Yeah.
No, I can imagine, Wendy. I'm in
Mm.
fitness, so I'm all about being proactive, taking action, putting systems in place, having a plan. What systems, what action can the South African consumer take at the moment to help alleviate some of the pressure? What type of decision?
That is a very broad question. So there's sort of how to avoid getting into trouble and like make the decisions you make, and then also if you're in that bad position rather, what do you then do? So first thing, let's talk about prevention. So a big bulk of my work, increasingly so in the last 24, it's just done this, is dealing with scams and frauds, victims of. So
Okay.
a lot of people are losing a lot, especially if people get into their bank accounts. And not only are they losing what they had, they are these, and they said a bad word, these despicable people then use all their available credit and leave them with considerable debt.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
the
had a
first
client
thing
of
I
mine
could,
who suffered.
yeah, it's just relentless and the volumes are awful. So I think people don't quite understand how dangerous the internet is. So they are responding to Facebook ads. For me, there's like 12 red flags and people just aren't seeing it. They just see a nice price, a nice goodie at a nice price, and the size is available. Clue, if a pair of shoes or whatever you want is available in every style and in every size, and you have no, that's not the real world. And at a bargain price, be suspicious. These branded shoes from Crocs
Okay.
to you name it, Birkenstocks, Skechers, it's just crawling with scam sites. So people need to, I think there's not enough attention to detail. This is going to sound judgy, but just not enough attention to detail, to the use of language, to what's not there. There should be a physical address on those sites. There should be a phone number by law. Then put it into Google Maps, and and then look what other businesses are around. Phone them. Go detective. People go detective after they've been scammed. That's the wrong timing.
Yeah.
So
Do your homework.
phone those businesses. See, do you get people coming in that area asking for this business? Yes. 9 times out of 10, they'll say yes. Just there's so many. I don't want too much detail for now, but to just have attention to detail and use the internet for your advantage in terms of your investigative undertakings. So
Yeah.
there's that. So be highly suspicious of any new venture, putting your money anywhere until your own research proves otherwise. And that sounds terribly sad, but that's where we are. Pay attention to your SMSs, because that's where your banking passwords and things are going to be sent. If it isn't you generating them, then you're in trouble. So I think that's the first one, is choose where you're spending your money very, very carefully, because a lot of people are being caught in big and small ways. And then for those who are now in a debt hole, or just struggling to see how they're ever going to survive, is just well, I have to say, consider going under debt review. If you've still got an income, it's just not enough to meet your outcome, then your spending, then you're a good candidate for debt counselling. But make sure you choose the debt counsellor very carefully. Consult with the national credit regulator, word of mouth, who's the best debt counsellor. If you're not ready to go there, because it is a very arduous process. You can get it can take 3-4 years. You can't apply for any new credit while you're busy paying all of that off. But just look at, and what the debt counselling process does is make people look at their wants versus their needs, which we don't always want to do. Just in terms of, the food you're buying. If you're buying convenience food, anything convenient, anything that's being sold to you as convenient costs a premium. So if you're kind of like, oh, I can't, I can't cope, whatever, well, look to cut out the convenience in your life. So I'll give you a silly little relatable example. If you telling yourself that it's too much trouble to kind of choose the onions you want, get the plastic bag thing, rip it off, or take your own bag, whatever, and put them in, and then stand and weigh them versus buying the thing in the tray with the cling wrap or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
then it's costing you. And even if it isn't costing you, you should check that it's, sometimes it will and sometimes it won't. If you're not looking at the unit prices of goods that you want to buy, as opposed to just the selling price, is the unit price per kilogram per liter, which will give you the real price, and you can compare it with competitors because they're all changing their pack sizes, and so what looks the same is not the same. So the bargain that you think is the bargain is not the bargain. Checking to see, it's realizing what the retailers will score out of your assumptions. So
Yeah.
they'll score, if you're assuming that the bulk size is always going to be the cheapest, well, it's not going to be the cheapest. If you check the actual unit prices, you'll find it's not. I think it's just paying attention and questioning if something's, like even going to buy a car, like the convenience of that finance and insurance person sitting there is doing everything for you. That's going to cost you. They're going to add things on. We'll fit the tracker, and they're getting a cut. It's built in. They're probably giving you a tracking device that's far more expensive and with more features than you need for insurance purposes, for example. All those extras just get piled on. The delivery fee, talk about it. You just need to just avoid taking the easy route in anything. Question,
Yeah.
compare, do your research. I think that's the best advice. And, I can see it, and this is going to sound nasty, but a lot of the emails I get are just like a stream of consciousness vomited onto the screen. It's just like a wodge of copy, no capital letters, no spaces. They're writing to someone to ask them for their free help, and it's just this no details that I need. It's just this like, well, please help. I'm like, it tells me, it gives me clues as to why this person got into trouble in the first place, because they didn't pay attention to the details. Do you know what I'm saying? It's
Yes.
just,
The devil's.
you need to be diligent. You need to pay attention. It's will be hard work at first, but then becomes a way of life. I mean, I can be very slapdash. I'm a bit scatty. I'm not one of those A-type driven, organized person. I mean, just look at behind me. This is my life and makes me feel at home. But I mean, I'm not as neat, organized, tick box list making kind of person. But if there's anything this job has taught me, is to be focused when it comes to your consumer dealings. Document, take photos, spot, pay attention to the details, who you spoke to, when, on a website. Why, is this there? Where's the address? Let's check the address. Just check a company's registration. It's never been easier. When I started out, these things were, just
Yeah.
totally arduous. Now, at the end of your fingertips, there's the answer in minutes. So there really isn't an excuse
Mm.
not to take the time to do these things that will honestly 100% save you from a lot of consumer drama if it slowly day by day.
Yeah. Do you know what I've started to do when I go grocery shopping? I know I used to buy the pre-packed chopped up like butternut, pumpkins, that
That's what
sweet
I'm talking
potato.
about, because who
Yeah.
wants to
So
peel a
I've
butternut? Ugh.
yeah. So tried pumpkins even worse. Cracky Moses. So
Yes, you can cut yourself.
I, yeah, and that's what we've started doing. I
Yep,
buy the sort of the quarter pumpkins or the half pumpkins. Sometimes if I would rather it's at this stage, if there's a full pumpkin, I would rather buy the full pumpkin than buy two or three like already pre-chopped pumpkins, because I found there was that per
exactly.
100
Thank
grams or
you. That's
whatever
what I'm
the
talking
measurement
about.
is. Mm.
If you add all of that up, am I talking to a man who's making his own baby food by any chance?
Yet we have got a 3 month old. He's three
I
months
just
old
heard the
today.
pumpkin. Are they not? Oh, wonderful. So
Yeah,
from 4
yeah.
months you
So
can start.
he's still on milk, but
Yeah.
the
Okay,
but
it's coming. Yeah, I must
mm,
say I walked my talk. As I say, I became consumer journalist when I had I wrote my first column. She would have been 5 months old. I'd just gone back to work. And if you look at my early columns, it's quite interesting because I'm now, it's 25, going on 26 years later. So I was doing a lot of comparisons of nappy prices and
Yeah.
baby foods and all that sort of stuff. And then there was a lot of school related stuff. And as obviously whatever phase you're in, you and your contemporaries, you're very alive to those issues. If you look at my used to be scrapbooks, now it's all online. You look back on the things I've written about in 25 years, it's sort of very much not exclusively on, obviously, but quite a lot of life stages relevant stuff there. Yeah. You're
Yeah.
beating the
I
system.
like
That's
that.
what I like, is that you beat the assumptions that people make, right? To part us with our money or more money than we could. I like to game to kind of be ahead of their kind of social engineering and kind of
Yeah.
beat them
See
at
around
their
the
own game.
corner.
That's what makes me tick, and sharing those little things makes me tick. It's just who I am, and that's why I love my job so much, and ultimately.
Yeah, Wendy, what a wonderful way to finish. I think that's a great way to leave it for the listeners and for me and you and I today. Where can people find you if they want to get in touch? Hopefully it's to share good news. Put it in the show notes.
Okay, I'm not going to give you my cell phone number for obvious reasons. I
No.
would never get that phone off my ear. So the best way is via email, and I will give my disclaimer yet again that I can't promise to take up your case or even see your email. It's just on some days the deluge is too great, so I apologize for that upfront. It's consumer@knowler.co.za. Consumer spelled KNOWLER. And put what the subject in the subject line, or just say please help. It just helps to see what the issue is, and then all the details. Don't do a sort of tester email without any details, because if I reply and ask for your details, then I might not see your response. So if you catch me once, it's the best chance. So get dates, count numbers, cell phone numbers. About 60% of people who write about cell phone issues don't put their cell phone number in there, for example, and it's just a time waster. So you got the best chance of getting my help if you put everything I need in one email, one basket, and then I can send it off to the respective company straight away, and hopefully get some relief.
Wonderful. Wendy, on behalf of South Africa and consumers across the nation, thank you very much for
thank you so much.
the wonderful work that you do and the responsibility that you seem to have taken on over the. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Clint. I enjoyed that chat. Thanks very much.
Not so fast. It's a new year, which means it's a new outro. And let me level with you. It is such a cool feeling when I see that Spotify subscribers number increase on the weekly, when I see the number of people listening to the episodes going up. And it really makes a huge difference. Have you ever done something and you feel so good when you get rewarded by some positive feedback and you really feel like you're making a difference? That's what it means to me, and that's how I feel. And it goes a long way if you like the show, share it and subscribe it. Thank you humbly, and I'll see you next week.